On this episode of ResiWeek, understanding architects, video calibration, and big box smart home failures. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek episode 205, Muscle Memory Matters.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Draper, focused on innovative solutions.
Welcome to ResiWeek. This is your weekly wrap-up of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv. And this week, the first episode of 2020, we are pleased to be joined by three of my favorite people. First of all, it is Henry Clifford. He is the president of Livewire and the co-founder of Paracel. How are you, sir?
Fantastic, Matt. Thanks for having me today. Happy New Year.
Hey, same to you. Thank you so much for being here. Then we have Jeremy Glowacki. He is the executive editor of Residential Tech Today. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. And last and certainly not least, one of my favorite New Yorkers, Mark Feinberg. He is the president of Home Theater Advisors. How are you, sir?
Doing great, Matt. Thanks for having me, even though it's a little last minute. I appreciate it.
Well, you know, when people drop out, I think of my favorite friends, and none of them were available, so I called you.
Exactly.
All right.
It was pretty far down the list, but, eventually you got there.
After a while, you just keep flipping through the Rolodex, and finally your name pops up, and it is what it is. All right, let's kick this off with a lovely note. We won't dig too much into this, but congratulations to Frank Stearns. He is joining Sound United as the Senior VP of Commercial Operations. If you've been in this business for more than a minute, you will know of Frank Stearns. He is a fantastic individual and has he's been with quite a few companies. Most recently, he was with Sony as head of their CI division, and congratulations to him on his new endeavor with Sound United. Gentlemen, let's jump into we've actually got some really good stories for the first show of the new year, which I got to say is kind of rare. Normally, this is a very silent moment right before CES news drops, which it is starting to do. So stay tuned next week. We'll have a lot of great stuff coming out of CES. But for this week, we're going to kick this off with a story that comes to us from Residential Systems and Randy Stearns. Understanding what architects need from tech integration firms. This is a fantastic primer article on ways in which to essentially develop relationships with architectural firms. Henry, I want to start with you on this one. As I read through this article, a couple of things come to mind. The main thing being that kind of the overarching principle of this is that there needs to be some common ground. There needs to be some understanding and, dare I say, less ego in the development of a relationship between a home technology professional and a prospective architect that you'd like to work with. Am I oversimplifying that, or is that kind of bang on what we're talking about here?
No, I think it is bang on. And I also think it's important to consider the author. Randy has opined on a bunch of topics just like this one, and I've gotten a chance to sit with him and just listen to him just talk about his philosophy about where he feels like the industry is and is headed, and his ideas have generated hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue for our company. So like he's given us ideas like have your guys take the vans home, charge design retainers to get jobs off the street. Having an article like, hey, understand your place in the food chain, understand the architect's pain point, and understand that there's a reason why guys like, I don't know, Jerry Lynch with System 7, he's a good one, or some of these other folks out there who really get it, who come at it from a design aesthetic perspective. They understand the audience. And I think Randy with the article is just saying, hey, look, instead of just another sort of beat you over the head article about you should do this and you should do that, he's really given some pretty achievable kind of objectives there. And I just say this is just another page out of his playbook. I mean, he's got a ton of these, and I mean, there's a part of me I just want to just follow him around and kind of just get all the rest of the good ideas, because I'm not kidding. I mean, every one of these ideas, because he's been in the industry for such a long time, they're money makers. Mm-hmm. And if we just kind of shut up and listen a little bit, especially with him, I can just say, the last 5 years of being in business, his ideas are profitable ideas.
Very good. Jeremy, one of the other things that Randy touches on is essentially that we have to stop the Technospeak. And you and I have had this conversation about really multiple aspects of the industry, that we get so caught up in proving, if you will, that we know what we're talking about, that we hype the tech side of things, and we throw facts and figures and numbers and specs at everyone we talk to. Is the key to connecting with people outside of the industry and finding partners? Is it to, dare I say, dumb down what we do and really focus on the experience opposed to the technology?
Well, I don't know if it's dumbed down, but it is keeping in mind that the world outside of the custom integration business is, they want to know the baseline of what they need to know. So if it's a consumer, if it's a client, it's their lifestyle, it's maybe solving some challenges in their home. It's not trying to blow people away with the latest gadget necessarily. There are clients like that. We all know them out there, and there are people that wanted to spend the most money to outdo their neighbor, perhaps. But someone like an architect in this case, they have a specific need. And I think what he's saying here is that we need to realize what that is and understand the personality of this individual that we're working with. Because I think for years I've been editing articles that talk about the importance of getting in early in a project with an architect, a builder, and you kind of put them in this category. You think of them as a certain gatekeeper and personality type, and you kind of elevate them in this personality. And it's the first time I've ever heard them described the way he describes them here, which is they're basically introvert engineer types with a creative bent, which I thought was beautifully stated. And, it's probably pretty accurate. And so they don't like to be sold, they're going to like run and hide if you come at them too hard with some of this stuff. And if you know what they need and what sort of solves problems for them later in a project, whether that's, power, needs for a certain room, spacing for an equipment rack, the zoning for HVAC, that type of thing, and not throwing a bunch of stuff to them that's going to come well after they're involved and not necessary for their insight. I think that's where he's getting at here. And I think it's not really dumbing down so much as it's just finding what the important elements are for the audience that you're addressing.
Focusing. I love it. Mark, I'm going to lodge kind of the practical question to you. One of the things that I don't think I've ever seen anyone mention in the conversation about working with an architect, a builder, designer, whatever, is the focus that he gives to drawings. In this article, he dedicates 3 paragraphs to drawings. We don't.
That drove it home for me.
we don't see that. So the question I have for you is, if you're a firm that does not to date produce true drawings, not, hey, I sketched this out, hey, here's a line source drawing, but true architectural style drawings, how do you either ramp up to that, or how do you solve that knowledge gap of walking into an architect and say, hey, we've got a great design for your project, here's a napkin?
Well, Matt, I'm going to throw that right back at you, because I am that guy who doesn't really do drawings. So I read that and I'm like, crap, I've known for a long time I need to do drawings, but I I'm using DTools Cloud. It doesn't have a real drawings feature yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an expert at Visio. I don't have any CAD knowledge. So other than outsourcing it, I don't really have a way to do drawings at this point that I know of well, and I haven't been doing them. I've been marking up floor plans, on my computer using either PDF or PowerPoint or something to mark it up of where things are going, but I'm not creating drawings.
Well, and I would argue that that's the first step, is at least being able to properly, using generally accepted symbols, etc., mark stuff up. Henry, I'm assuming that you guys do drawings. Hopefully you do drawings. Otherwise we're in trouble.
Hey.
Yeah, well, we kind of grade our projects. So if we're going into a project where, we'll say it's like a big boy project, right? Mm-hmm. Or big girl project, whatever.
A big person.
Where we know that we just can't bring our maybe standard system documentation to bear. It's sort of like, we're not going to use a howitzer to kill a field mouse, right? But at the same time, we just want to match the weapon to the project. And so our builder business, where we're doing maybe a lot of volume, our in-house system designer can take care of all that, do a lot of that in Visio, it's fine. But you get some of these large estates or places where there's an architect, where there's a lighting designer, where there's interior decorators, and you gotta all of a sudden be now able to work in CAD and Revit and all these things. And there are companies out there, like, I'll shamelessly plug Blue Dog, because they're awesome, and Doug Dodd and Kurt Hayes. You can call up these guys and they'll make you look like $1 million. You can outsource that whole capability, and we've been working with them for 5 or 6 years. And for me, who for the most part, a lot of this I know how to sell really well, and some of the technical stuff I'm good, and some of it I'm not. And to have a backstop like that, where they can again make you look like a rock star, and you can rent that functionality, because the other thing you got to think that what we think about is the muscle memory, meaning it's all good and well to go and get one of your employees trained in how to use a particular software package or what. But if they're not using, Homeworks is a good example of that, right? If you're not doing a homework system every single day, you don't have the muscle memory for that. The next big project that comes along, it's great, you got somebody trained in-house, but again, there's rentable people, folks who are amazing in our industry. They don't compete with us, who they live to make us look like $1 million. And so that's what we've done. I'm not saying that's the right thing, but that's how we've solved for that.
And that's where I was probably going to be going, because just as, I have a finance background, but I need to spend time building the business. I need to spend time doing my accounting. Mm-hmm. So I have a bookkeeper that I outsource my accounting to. I have a web developer that I outsource my web development to. I'm going to be outsourcing drawings when the need comes up. And now the need hasn't arisen where I have, $1 million projects in estates. But when that need comes, it is companies like Blue Dog that we're going to turn to, because you need to have that relationship before you should have that relationship before you have that immediate need. But yeah, I think that's the way to do it. Is you can't, especially in smaller companies, you can't do everything in-house.
Well, and I would argue, and kind of to wrap that up and surmise that, I think that's something that's overlooked in our industry. We very often try to do everything in-house, whereas if I put on my corporate hat for a minute and my pro AV hat, we outsource all kinds of stuff. In that world, you can outsource literally everything, from sales to labor to installation to certification. You can run a one-man shop that does millions of dollars every year and never hang a TV, connect a cable, do anything, and yet achieve all of that. Hey, thanks for watching the first segment of this week's episode. To catch the entire show, please click the link below or visit avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv.